Hey all, Mark C. here from aradicalu.com. That's aradicalu.com. Where together we are waking up the world. Now I know my website says that happiness is our birthright, which is ultimately true. But if I were to put a qualifier on that statement, should say that happiness is the result, the perfume, if you will, of actions that you may choose to take, which will lead to some kind of semblance of joy and contentment. And those actions taken can sometimes lead to dead ends and sometimes to success. It can be a bit of a game of trial and error. But one thing is for sure, aiming toward happiness has to be tied to something real, something which aligns with the value you place upon it. Happiness is really just an abstraction if not anchored into meaning. Here's an example. I once studied acting. Stage directions in a particular play may indicate that a particular character demonstrates a happy state. But as an actor, like in life, if I didn't tie it back to something tangible which could produce that smile, a laugh, a knowing contentment in the character's life, that is, the conditions which led to that state, it's fake and unwatchable, and I'm a bad actor. And any director who tells you to just act happy without context is also a bad director. I've had a few of those in my day. This is reminiscent of when you're posing before a camera and the photographer tells you to say cheese. How many horrible pictures have you had with those fake cheery pusses on your face, right? So the desire to be happy is noble and also way too big to take on of in itself. That's why the phrase, the pursuit of happiness, I know it's a big American thing, tends to be kind of unreal, and hollow. Which leads me to the work of Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, as some of you may know, is an Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, philosopher, author, and most importantly, he was a Holocaust survivor. He was the founder of logotherapy, a school of psychotherapy that describes a search for life's meaning as the central human motivational force. He not only endured the horrors of World War II concentration camps, but ultimately found meaning in his suffering in those concentration camps. He was often quoted as saying, "Happiness doesn't pursue, it ensues." In other words, happiness follows and it does not lead. And ultimately, happiness is tied to some meaning. And I think we confuse successful results with the step-by-step necessary work. Frankl, quoting philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, once said, "He who has a why to live can deal with any how." I love that quote. I'm going to say it one more time. He who has a why to live can deal with any how. Frankl states that life ultimately means taking responsibility to find the right answer to whatever challenges arise and fulfill those tasks that each life sets for each individual. To be responsible. I know that word is kind of loaded, has a lot of mixed meanings to it, but if you really break it down, it's the ability to respond, right? Responsibility. Moreover, he states that it's impossible to define the meaning of life in general terms. Life does not mean something vague like wanting happiness, but something concrete. Finally, he indicates that each situation calls for you a unique response, sometimes resulting in a lot of action, sometimes in contemplation, sometimes a mixture of both. Life is simply asking us to respond. One can even find meaning in suffering. It's the type of suffering where you don't have control over it. If you do have control over it, you do your best to alleviate it. Otherwise, you're a masochist, right? Frankl also observed that those in Auschwitz who could get through the moments of inconceivable pain and most importantly, had something to live for the sake of another, to live for the love of just life itself or something, gave them the meaning and the perseverance to carry on, sometimes even to their death, but they died with dignity, according to Frankl. And I think that most of us, deep down, have something to live for. We may be confused or confounded by the big picture. What does this all mean, right? But that may be the wrong question. There are lots of little things, small by the world standards, but have value and worth in our lives. Here's an example. Just take a look at your wallet. Take a look at the contents in your wallet. And that may be a key to what you value and love. I know it sounds crazy, but stay with me for a moment. You know, if you look in your wallet and there are pictures of loved ones, a library card because you love knowledge, a membership to a gym because you love physical fitness, a card to your favorite organic food store. It's perhaps paying attention to those smaller things, which may be the key to what's really important. We've been sold sort of this bill of goods that life's meaning is akin to some grand prize where all the pieces fall neatly into place. Maybe for some of you that could be true, but I'm willing to bet that we do the best we can each day, loving what we may be right in front of our noses. As Frankl says, we may not have the whole thing figured out. Perhaps one day when we die, we might have it all figured out, but even then, it may not be crystal clear. So perhaps breaking it down to our day-to-day life, appreciating what's there might be a good start. And that meaning is the engine that drives us, even in the worst of times. And if there's a goal you want to pursue, it's probably a good idea to break it down into manageable little chunks rather than forcing it all to happen instantaneously. Now, nothing what I'm saying here is particularly new and innovative, but it's also a lesson we keep having to learn over and over again. Getting concrete with each step. Now, as I said, we may go down a particular road and discover that that particular road wasn't really the right one. You may then have more data, more self-data to work with. So actually, it's not a cause for despair, but a cause for celebration. I'll give you another example from my own life. I spent a semester when I was a freshman in college in a mock newsroom because I thought I was going to be the next Woodward and Bernstein. Yeah, I'm that old. But I just realized after a semester of that was not what I wanted to do with my life. We just have to get away from this notion that instant success, instant enlightenment, instant everything is the panacea. And again, Frankl has much to say here. And it's not about chasing after the vagaries of success and happiness. And he sounds downright Buddhist in his admonishing against grasping. I quote, he says, "Don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you're going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself." I want you to listen to what your conscience commands you to do. Your conscience, I should say, commands you to do, and go on and carry it out to the best of your knowledge. Then you will live to see that in the long run, success or happiness will follow you precisely because you had forgotten to think about it. Those are just so profound words because they just ring so true. So this is not a recipe for instant riches or whatever your intended goal is. It may be more about taking a breath, look at what resources you have at your disposal, and then act or respond accordingly and see what unfolds. Life really is more like an adventure, really an adventure of the heart and of the mind, working in tandem with a result that may take several interesting twists and turns. The key here is to stay curious. Yeah, curiosity may be the fuel that keeps you going. And you can look at your situation and go, oh, that's interesting. And happiness may just bubble up from that spring. So, if you'd like to explore where you are in this life adventure, feel free to reach out to me at radicalu.com, where I'm now offering a session, the first session, for free. And free don't hurt. And there's no obligation to stay on if this is not your brand of coffee or tea. So go to my website, radicalu.com. The information is linked below. And thanks for hanging out with me today. Namaste.